Hey YouTube, we're still at it with the strength build, doing what we can to reach that state of self-actualization and forgive ourselves for playing too much dexterity. Once our conscience is clear, maybe then we can move on to a different build. Not a dexterity one though, we've learned our lesson. I'm only joking, but still, lots of fun, and I just loved this opening clip so much. There's something funny about waiting for somebody to roll at you twice and then catch them, with the great bow, just as a roll catch. Just waiting, making those shots. Almost feel bad for this duo. But I don't feel too bad because strength builds are a lot of fun. And we're starting to feel it. We're starting to feel that progression in our soul. We're starting to feel that forgiveness we have for ourselves. That we're changing as a person, developing, that maybe we won't be putting lightning infusions on things so soon again, and not for such a awful and long period of time. I felt so bad for this guy. I just wanted him an opportunity to heal, but he wasn't watching where he was going, and Mr. Confess Your Sins just goes off the cliff. What a sad end to his tale. But I do find that as I practice the game and I get better and more confident and my head is clearer, I often find myself being more merciful than is required by any means. I like to allow people a chance to heal themselves, to maybe make the clip more interesting and get a little more practice in, or eating the phantoms first before the host. I know that's a practice that a lot of PvP content makers do, but I'm finding myself getting a little more comfortable with the idea of not just outright killing the host first. Am I perfect at it? No. Can I always control the fight and be able to do that? Also, no. But it's something I'm finding more often in myself, which I think is an interesting progression of my abilities as I play the game. As sort of a casual fan who's put too many hours into the game to be considered a casual, maybe I'm just bad. That's fair, though. The most important part, and the main reason why I love strength builds, is I have fun. Even when I lose, I have a blast. Check out this combo. Silly, wasn't that? Gravity Stone Fan into a light attack. But it worked. It worked very well. That's another trick I don't know how much time I want to put into practicing. The Gravity Stone Fan is fairly helpful, especially since it can stumble people and set them up, but I just don't know when it's gonna hit, and I don't know if I want to get the spacing down. It feels like the best time to use it is when you know you can space a jump attack. I don't know if that's accurate, but it feels like that would probably be the best thing to punish. Anything with a good amount of end lag, I suppose. Maybe you could also use it to catch somebody who's using, like, War Cry or Braggart's Roar, that you know about where the attack is going to end, and they are just bound and determined to use the full charge attack in their attempts of trying to hit you. And there I am doing the fat roll because we're a sad little level 80. We have 29 endurance. That's a lot at our level. 29 whole points of endurance. But we still have to make it count. It's not the moon or anything. It's not a huge horde of endurance. It's just enough. Also, I don't know what the problem is with Flaming Strike. It feels like it breaks people's guard way too often, which is funny because I never pull it out thinking this is the Ash of War I use for breaking guard. That's not the Ash of War that comes to mind. Usually the Ash of War that comes to my mind is like Royal Knight's Resolve or Sword Dance or Square Off. Are usually my first picks of something that'll break through a shield. Still, I appreciate this duo here. They're like around the corner from the boss, but they decided they'd rather wait and fight me. And I don't know what their builds are, I don't know if they're randoms, I don't know if they know each other, but particularly this host, he decides to put a shield bash on his medium shield. No, shield crash. He put shield crash on his medium shield. And I've never seen that before in all of my many hours of Elden Ring. I have never once seen that. And it caught me by surprise thoroughly. He's going to hit me with it in a minute. And I don't know if that's something I should try. I've always wanted to put shield bash on a medium shield and give it a go. Shield bash is also supposed to be an okay shield breaker type move. See, here it is. And he slams me with it and it almost gets me a cold proc. So maybe a status shield would be a fun idea. Maybe a fire shield, I don't know. It's just so tempting. I want to try it out now, and that's one thing I like about fighting people who do specifically non-meta stuff, is they give me ideas. I was truly inspired by this fellow, and the fight made me happy. It was a great time. And then the random disconnect, and before you go, oh, he rage quit, it's the Alt F4 true combo. No, I made the mistake of recording that clip on a Tuesday. That's right, Steam server maintenance day. The server went down and we were disconnected from each other in the middle of our noble duel. He is not a rage quitter. Do not think poorly on that random unnamed host that I was about to slaughter. Also, somebody using the darkness spell, unironically. Neat things you run into out in the wild. This person's put on Taunter's Tongue. They wanted to fight somebody. They wanted to fight somebody at level 80, and they had a repertoire of spells for them to use. It's always fun. I feel like I run into the fun people when I'm playing around level 80. The people who have the really creative and unique ideas. Maybe it's because they aren't slaves to the meta yet, not until they hit a higher level, but you really run into some oddballs. I had one invasion that you might remember if you've seen multiple of my videos. I think it was my Flamehead Moira video, actually, where this guy was dueling random people who would invade him underneath a mausoleum, a wandering mausoleum in Liurnia, and it's the jumping one, so it's constantly creating shockwaves and dropping rocks on your head, and I still have not had an experience quite like that. And it's just, that's something that happens at level 80, and something that feels like it only happens in that bracket. Maybe occasionally at level 60, right? But mostly level 80, it doesn't happen at meta levels. Maybe people take themselves too seriously, and their creative drive just dries up and withers on the vine. I couldn't tell ya. As a tangent, this video is serving two purposes. For one, it's a video for your regular entertainment, and two, it's getting that pesky YouTube apology video out of the way. You know, the one that everyone has to make at some point. YouTube will hunt you down and delete you, or make you commit self-delete if you don't. So I have to apologize, so here's the video for that. But check this out. Roll past the Bloodhound and pull him from off-screen for a backstab. Oh, that felt nice. I need to get better at the free cams and the pivot backstabs and the rolling just perfectly. But that felt wonderful. It's the coolest thing you've seen today. And if for some largely unexplained reason it isn't the coolest thing you've seen today, I kindly and humbly request you go into the comments and tell me what the cooler thing was that you saw. It's important. I need to know. I'm demanding it of you. You don't have too much of a choice in the matter. I mean, you really do. But I'm going to tell you you don't. And maybe, just maybe, somebody out there will believe. Also, catching somebody who's using a healing incantation with a backstab will never not be funny to me. I don't know why, it just feels like the biggest killjoy in the world. But it's another one of these people. These people who summon a NPC Phantom who has a huge amount of health, and then they let people invade them. I've never seen this one before. I feel like Melina is a pretty popular one before the Morgoth fight. I feel like Shibiri and Nefeli Lu before the Horalu fight, the Godfrey fight, is also a very popular choice, where they just bring in this Phantom, because the Phantom requires thousands of HP. I've seen a couple people do it with Bernal before the Godskin duo. I don't understand the mentality at all, and I know I've said that about several different concepts while playing this game and recording my adventures, but still. Do they go to like New Game Plus 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever to bring him in? Because they have so much HP and they are such a chore. I imagine it's just griefing and that's how they get their kicks, right? But it just looks so lame. It just, you don't learn hardly anything. And there's not really a back and forth. Not to my knowledge. You'll just kill a handful of invaders. Also, that poor duo, it wasn't a very exciting invasion, but I had to show it off. Now here's an invasion that took a turn. I was spooked of these guys. They were using poke weapons, they had halberds, they were doing the running pokes, and they were being quite aggressive until I got to this frozen lake, where finally I had a little more breathing room and they were spacing each other out. I'm sure if you've ever invaded somebody, you've had one of those moments where you're just running and rolling and running and rolling, and you can't get a moment to yourself to kind of reset and plan your next move. Something about the golem, though, made them make poor decisions and split up, which was exactly the edge I needed. Another footnote in the great grand book of know the map and find your allies, no matter where they might be. Unrelated note to myself, practice swaps. I need to get better at making those more routine. I'm just awful at the swaps. Especially if I don't know exactly where the item is or it's not one single press away. I do awful at swapping, and it just wastes time that does not need to be wasted. That's for me, not you. Disregard that last part. You know, for a grumpy town guard who is always perpetually one day from retirement, Sir Samuel Vimes sure has a lot of land to cover. He's got quite the jurisdiction. All these crime makers all about that need a proper arrestin' of sorts. They don't listen to orders. They don't freeze when you hit them with a freeze pot. They don't stay asleep very long when you hit them with a sleep pot. The less than lethal options just aren't working out, unfortunately. So sometimes you gotta take the lethal option, you know, fearing for your life. So you do the roll, and you catch them with the backstab with the Zweihander, and it's all over. Smooth as silk. Another thing to add to the list, rolling backstabs and pivot backstabs. I'm not particularly good at them, though I am seeing them more often as I get a little better with my movement. This clip was funny because it's only funny to me really, but I was so skeptical. You walk in here, everything's busted already and he's alone. It's like, alright, who's with him? Who's hanging out here? There's gotta be somebody else. You should never trust the lone host that's that close to a bonfire or a site of grace. Still, he's the occult duelist, which makes me wonder if he's running an occult build on weapons that have really high, strength requirements, that particular weapon at least, which feels a bit wasteful when you're in the level 80 bracket. Like, you don't have enough. If you're just doing physical damage, you might as well stick with keen or heavy. I'm pretty certain occult doesn't give you extra rot, and you can't slather grease on it. So maybe he just wanted occult in the general sense, and he's not actually using the occulted fusion on his weapons. But that was the first thing that came to my mind when thinking about this fellow. But look at him pulling out the shield. Unfortunately, the shield is a dead giveaway for anyone who's reasonably accustomed to the game, and so you know to make your attacks as syncopated as possible. No sense getting parried when it's very, very preventable. In this case, where he's just looking for that golden opportunity to change the tide, and I'm just using it to get rot off on the rot-flavored boy. And we get him with the tasty R2. It makes sense to me why the very high-level gamers do the swap and parry with their main hand with a shield, just so that their weapon instantly transforms into a shield, and so they get the parry off, because they just got the timing down, they got their swaps down, and it's that element of surprise that allows them to parry. Of course, you know, it's also a very good flex, and that's something I would like to learn at some point, but I'll admit, I'm still learning how to swap for Ashes of War and for different types of weapons reliably. Switching weapon with a swap for a parry in the main hand just to swap to a dagger or something else to capitalize on that parry gives me shivers, keeps me up at night, worries me greatly. That is a huge degree of skill I have not yet attained, and I don't know if I will within reason. I do want to keep learning though, so maybe one day. Maybe once I've mastered a few more of the basics. But shouldn't put it off forever. And I was excited because this guy reminded me of a knight fight I had recently against a guy who looked like the Crusader character from the Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade. And I had such a great sword fight with him. I was using the Claymore at the time and learned so much. I was like, here's another opportunity. Small fight, having a good old great sword fight. So he's going to buff up here, and I decided to use a few more principles that I had learned. Am I perfect? No, but I had so much fun with this little duel. It made me smile. It made me genuinely happy afterwards. And it's not just because you can guess I'm going to win by the end or what have you, but it's because, I don't know, it's just this neat little interaction. It took place out in the wild. It wasn't a duel where both of us were necessarily prepared to try hard. He was Taunter's Tongued, or actually he had an ally earlier that left, so maybe he wasn't Taunter's Tongued. But I give him a moment. I want him to heal because I'm just having such a grand time that I would love nothing more than for this fight to continue and for me to continue learning. And what better way to learn than to practice and to analyze and to pay attention. But in the end, he needed to be put down. I love that simultaneous hit there. Oh, it looked so good. I love these interactions. Great sword fights are some of my favorite. I love the ebb and flow of them. But I flub and then make the parry and it's all over. And I hope you accept my apology. Thank you, and have yourself a fantastic day. Bye-bye.